this or the rendering, because they may be
And you know what,
talking
Franco,
about
can you
the
pass me
same.
out the, if someone wants to.
Good afternoon, or good evening, actually. Design Review Board Number 2 public meeting of January 31st, 2008 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker's cards, like this, provided at the table by the front door and submitted to staff. You will be called to present a case or speak on a specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current DRB agendas are available by calling our DRB hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB reconsideration and appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within 7 calendar days of the DRB decision date. Chairperson may reorder agenda items at his discretion. Roll call.
Board Member Carnahan?
Here.
Board Member Friedman is absent. Board Member James?
Here.
Board Member Malikian?
Here.
Board Member Zurafian?
Here.
Report regarding posting of the agenda.
The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on January the 25th.
Thank you. You know, on this one it says oral communication, but on the other one it says that after the projects. But I don't have any cards anyway, unless anybody has something they want to say. Okay. So let's start.
Okay, the only item on tonight's agenda is case number 2-PDR 2006-022-A. The project is located at 1340 Virginia Avenue. The applicant is Franco Novavian, and the project proposal includes the demolition of an existing one-story, 2,100 square foot home and detached garage, and to construct a new 3,403 square foot two-story house with an attached two-car garage. The board last saw this project 2 weeks ago after much discussion regarding the mass and scale and also quite a bit of oral communication from the audience. The board requested that the project be continued to tonight's agenda in order to allow the applicant time to prepare essentially a streetscape, a neighborhood profile, showing all of the various homes on the east side of Virginia Avenue, as well as the new proposed home superimposed within that neighborhood profile. The applicant has provided the requested information, and you see it pinned up on the board behind you. The applicant has also addressed some of the concerns that the neighbor had previously, the neighbors that is, and those would include, well, forgive me, I'm going to allow Franco to actually address some of the changes that he made. But as you see pinned up behind you, there is an updated revised proposal that consists similar two-story, home of the same somewhat massing. However, the perceived massing has somewhat been changed. There is an element that was on the second story directly above the front entryway that has actually been pushed back 4 feet, and so there's less imposition on the streetscape, so that by putting that back, there is somewhat of a perceived less massing. The windows have also been modified. They are no longer arched windows. They have been squared off, and the applicant has also proposed shutters to be included, as well as wood windowsills. The windows will now be also recessed. Along with the windows, the exposed rafter tails, the tongue and groove eaves, the two-piece clay mission tile. Again, it would be smooth plaster. There's definitely much more of a Spanish architectural style to the home, whereas previously the home was somewhat of a Mediterranean style with attached stone veneer, the arched windows and whatnot. The architect believes that this particular design would be more compatible than the previous one. That concludes staff's presentation. Stephanie Reek has also reviewed this. Again, this is our senior urban designer. In the brief amount of time that we were able to take a look at, again, these plans were submitted to us this afternoon. There have been obviously modifications made to the design, but not the overall massing, but the perceived massing, that is, in regards to the architectural changes. I'm sure the architect can better highlight those changes as well. The Franco-Moravian has also provided a streetscape design, as you see in the map behind you. If you allow me to walk up, or I can just go ahead and point, I'm sure you see it. The 30-foot setback from the front property line has been superimposed all along the streetscape, and so you can see essentially the building footprints and where the homes sit in relation to Virginia, as well as the detached garages. And again, the current proposal has been superimposed on that map as well. That concludes staff's presentation. We're available to answer any questions you may have.
Question.
Right.
Has this information been distributed to the people here tonight that are...
No, it is not, and this has been received.
So we're the only ones that have had access to this?
Well, and you have only received it just now as well. So
I got my email yesterday.
Correct. No, the email just included a letter, and the perspective drawing that you see up there did not include any of the plans or any of the maps or drawings. And so you're seeing it for the first time. That was something that was mentioned to the board at the last meeting, that you would only be able to see the plans at the hearing, given the short amount of time that the architect would have to prepare the requested documents. So, and that, again, everyone was made aware of that only the drawings would be provided in time just for the hearing, not for an additional time for review.
And if I may, typically, this is, we would have asked the applicant to bring information to us earlier, since, as Vilja mentioned, this was continued to a date certain, really for just additional information. We had not anticipated there would be a need for that. The architect has, unbeknownst to us in advance, taken it upon himself to really, in our minds, improve the design. And while we haven't had a chance to fully analyze that or post it in the way that we normally would, we are actually very encouraged by the design and the effort that the architect has made in such a short time.
Question 2.
Go ahead.
Can someone shed light on the legal opinion on the meeting, this document we received? And what impact that has on our meeting tonight? And
This would be a letter from Mr. Oscar Fessel, dated January the 24th, in which he requested a continuance, citing that there was a misidentification of the Glenwood neighborhood location and the home itself. Now, in regards to this, what was considered an inappropriate identification, it should be in the Brockmont neighborhood. And this is something that was actually brought up before the previous Design Review Board hearing, and it was mentioned at the hearing that both Brockmont and Glenwood are two neighborhoods that are under the umbrella of the, I believe, and this is where I want to double check, they're both located within the overall scope of the same single-family neighborhood as listed in the single-family urban design guidelines.
So adjacent to each other?
Yes, and so I actually had those identifications and those maps for you at the last hearing, but I do not have them with me. I'd be more than happy to go ahead and provide those as well. So even though, yes, it was labeled as Brockmont and not Glenwood, which is the correct one, essentially both the Brockmont and the Glenwood sub-neighborhoods are within the same neighborhood, so you'd be analyzing it against the same information. There's no distinction between the two, no further distinction between the two in the single-family urban design guidelines.
So do you feel it's necessary for the letter went to Scott Howard. Do you feel necessary?
The letter went to
for him?
Scott Howard, and again, Board Member Friedman at the hearing, and we can go ahead and replay, if we had a copy of it, we could replay it. Board Member Friedman felt that at that point in time, that we could proceed with the hearing.
So the attorney here doesn't follow that.
The attorney received the letter. I have not received any additional information from the city attorney, no.
How do you feel that, in city, that we should proceed with this?
And again,
On this?
Board Member Laura Friedman made the determination last time, and that was based on staff's information, that both the Glenwood and Brockmont are two sub-neighborhoods within the same umbrella. That same umbrella, it has the same exact information. So essentially, even though it was misidentified in terms of the actual, the two neighborhoods are abutting one another. Those two sub-neighborhoods essentially have very similar home styles, and although they were misidentified by the applicant, that yes, the case could still proceed based on the fact that the overall description in the single-family home design guidelines is still the same for both sub-neighborhoods.
All right. Were the people in Brockmont notified instead of the ones in Glenwood, or were the general neighbors notified?
No, because essentially, those property owners within 300 feet were notified.
Okay.
So the same,
Regardless of which one. All right.
and forgive me, it was in the Woodlands neighborhood, and so, just to clarify that.
Okay. So, you're first, Franco. Please state your full name for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Franco Noravian, 409 West Broadway, Glendale, California, 91204. I'm the architect for the project. I want to thank you, first of all, for giving us an opportunity to come back and bring to you additional information as well as the revised design. Before I talk about the revised design, I just want to really quickly review basically the concerns that the neighbors had. You have a copy of my letter, but I categorized their concerns in three main areas. Number one was the size of the house, and I've said it many times, and I'll keep saying it. The size is only one part in the equation for determining compatibility, and if we are over in size, we can be better in other areas to make up for that. And there's two examples of the homes within our 300 feet. We looked at this last time. The one home, Mr. James, you weren't here last time, but the 1360 Virginia is actually 825 square feet smaller than what we're proposing, and 1314 Virginia is 560 square feet smaller than what we're proposing. So it's actually bigger than 1360 Virginia, but it looks much smaller because it's technically a split-level house, not really a two-story. The massing gives it the appearance of a smaller house. So my point is, massing can be manipulated to make something look small. And if that's the case, then we shouldn't, although square footage is important, we shouldn't concentrate so much on that. We should give more weight to other things, such as mass and scale, landscaping, architectural materials, et cetera, et cetera. So that was my answer to the square footage. The next thing is the number of stories. And that one I completely agree. And if in an area if there's no homes, and there's no two-story homes within 300 feet of the site, I can see why we should not have a two-story home. And in fact, that's what I told my client about 6-7 months ago when they came to me. I said, if there's no two-story homes, then we can't do a two-story home. And they said, oh no, there's a two-story home just a couple of doors down, and the next day they brought me the pictures. And when I saw that, I think that if you look at the other two-story home, and if you can say that is compatible with the neighbors because it's been there for so many years and nobody seems to have a problem with it, neighbors accept it, if that's acceptable and compatible, then our project should be twice as acceptable and compatible because our second story is actually pushed back. And that house, that two-story house, has a full front of the two-story on the setback line.
How many two-stories in the 300-foot radius?
Well, there's one two-story, and the other one is technically two-story, but doesn't really look like one because it's a split level. So you can, the pictures are up there.
On this side of the street?
On our side of the street, there's two
What about
story.
across the street?
Cross street, no two-story homes.
Actually, there's one across the street from this house.
A two-story home? Did I miss that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You can't tell it from the street, but if you go on the side, the back is two-story and has a steep roof in the front where
Okay.
there's,
All right.
it
So
is two-story house.
that just proves my point. What I've been trying to say all along is, especially square footage, number of stories is a little, I think, more important. But these things can be manipulated to make a house look compatible with its surroundings. It's not the determining factor. The most important factor, and that's the third point that the neighbors had, is style. And for what it's worth, I don't think the style that we were proposing before, even though it's Mediterranean and there aren't any Mediterranean homes in that area, I don't think it was so off that it would ruin the compatibility of the neighborhood. Some of the materials, we call it Mediterranean for the lack of a better term, but some of the materials we were using, stone, tile roof that looks like wood shake, I thought that it was compatible with the area. But since the neighbors were against it, and I got the feeling from the board that the board would like us to do something that's more compatible stylistically with the neighborhood, I went ahead and changed the style to a Spanish ranch kind of a style. And I think hacienda, right? And I think I do feel it's more compatible with the area. I think that's all I was going to say. As far as, if I can talk about the changes I've made.
Come up and show us the change.
Okay.
Here's the stick.
Right there.
Helen.
Oh, thanks. As Vilya said, the front of the house has been pushed back 4 feet.
This is the one you had before?
This is the one I had before, or actually, best to, if you compare these two, this mass has been pushed back,
Okay.
right? So that makes it even less of a.
How far is that from the street?
That you can see that in this setback, in this section. As you see, where I'm standing here, this is where I stood to take all these pictures. It's across the street. It's a 60-foot wide street, 15-foot parkway and sidewalk, and it's a 30-foot actual width of the
So what's
street.
this dimension here?
From
51.
51 and a half feet from the second floor to the property line.
31.
It's 31 feet from the first floor to the property line. That's one of the things that also changed. We used to be at, this plan was at 30 feet because we had the bay window. But when the bay window went away, we're at 31 feet now. The setback has been pushed back a little bit more. I also reduced, because there was a concern from the neighbor to the south about how the two-story house will tower over their house. I actually pushed it back 3 feet. We're now 19 feet away from the property line, and we were at 16 feet before. So it actually got reduced in this direction. That resulted in 30 square feet lower on the upper floor, which I applied to the lower floor. So same square footage. This section also, this is good, that what you've asked for, to see the house and how it fits in. But in section, and I got the numbers from here since I got a copy of the aerial topography, and there are topo lines on here, so that's how I got to my numbers. So that's basically. Oh, and then one very important thing. I think Mr. Zarifian used this word picturesque to describe the neighborhood, and I think that was. I agree, and I think I made the entry. To me, that's a big change. The entry from this, we went to this. Where is it? Right up here. I don't remember. Maybe 5 feet smaller, narrower, and I think that helps to make the house look not so much like a big house.
Quieter.
Yeah. And as well as the style. I think the style, the 30-inch overhangs, we had 9-inch overhangs before. So 30-inch overhangs make it look more horizontal and make it look smaller because of, just, yeah, it brings the roof down so you see less of the stucco. Exposed rafter tails. I'm trying to stay true to the style. All the headers above the windows, all the windows will be recessed. So, like I said, if we're over in the square footage, we're trying to make up for it in other areas by doing all this. So, do you have any questions?
Chairman, there was one concern too about the impact of the garage on that neighbor.
Can I talk about that?
Yes.
If you look at actually, this is probably the best picture. You see where the current garage is?
Right.
All of this is driveway currently, and there's cars parked there.
It's on the
And-
property line.
Yeah, this garage is right on the property line. And the new garage that we're proposing is, about, I would say, maybe 40 feet in front of the old garage. So it's not all the way in the back. Therefore, this area here is no longer a concrete driveway, but becomes landscaping. And the new garage, since it's attached, it has a 6-foot setback.
Right.
So that gives us opportunity for more landscaping. And you can see on our landscape plan, that provides an additional buffer zone.
What is the distance between the neighbor now?
Okay, so, and this was also mentioned, and from this aerial photo, you can see, at the closest point, I think it's 6 or 7, and the neighbor, if she's here, she had a picture last time, I don't remember if it was either 6 or 7, but that's only at that point. The rest of the house steps back in the front and front and back.
What's the difference
So
in the
it's-
elevation?
Difference elevation is 3 feet.
There's 3 feet out.
Right, yeah, that I got from the topo. And then the property to the north of us is higher by about 4 feet, I think. Before I forget, speaking of landscaping, that's another area where in this drawing, and also in this drawing, I try to put them in, but in the front of view, I didn't put them in. If you put the trees, you actually can't see the house.
You can't use that anymore.
Well, I know, but we have 3 48-inch box. I mean, if you look at our landscaping, they're larger trees than a new home would typically have. And that's what I mean by we're going over in other areas to make up for the extra square footage that we have.
I had a couple of questions.
Yeah.
On the south side,
Mm-hmm.
there's a block wall. Is that a property line wall?
Currently, yes, that's this wall you're talking about. Yeah.
Well, this one.
There's a fence and retaining wall combination.
Here, the gate, and then the walls up here.
Right.
And there's
right,
the head.
Right.
So that wall stays?
I-
Decorates? Are you going to do something? Is it staying there?
We're just proposing landscaping in front of it.
No, the part's not coming out per your plans. That's what this wall here is?
That's correct, yeah.
So the other thing is there's an existing hedge there
Mm-hmm.
that currently screens these two houses.
Okay.
What's thinking on that?
I think our
Showing it
landscape
here.
plan
I'm
shows
not saying
that.
it's showing this, but it's
Right.
not shown over there, so.
Right.
I was wondering what you're thinking.
If you prefer, instead of the landscaping we're proposing, we can keep the existing hedge. That we don't have an objection with that.
Well, the hedge will definitely survive the construction.
Yeah. But if
You can trim it, make it really thin if you want, you can
Right.
cut the height down.
Right.
But I thought that it would screen it pretty good, and you could even add to it a little bit on that line.
Right.
So that because right now, where this hedge is here, this house is invisible
Right.
from this yard. I don't know how far back the hedge goes. Probably almost to the garage, I guess, huh? It looks like it goes back somewhere to here someplace.
Yeah, at least to here, because I couldn't see the end of their house from the yard. So at least to the end of the neighboring house to the south. But if you want us to
I
add to
have
that
one of these-
hedge,
I have the same hedge in my driveway for that reason, and it's
Right.
because you can make it work. If
Right,
you
right.
wanted it, trim it a couple times a year, it's perfect hedge.
Right.
So I would consider that. The other thing is on the landscape plan over here, you're showing all your trash cans right over there.
So- yeah, I think
You took a lot of, it's just not, it's
That's
hard
right
to
here.
see what you're doing in there.
right there. It's in the side yard. Which again, I mean, if you want, we can move it to the back, and that's just the space that was available. So
Where's the kitchen?
the kitchen is right here. You can see it in this back. So the trash is there. The kitchen is right there. So you come out this door, You can put it here, I guess, closer to the kitchen than here.
Or if you put it on the other side.
Oh, on this side?
Well,
Sure, that's also,
you have
but
more
then
room.
you would have to have a walkway. We don't have a walkway, but we can provide one
A little bit of one.
that will take you all the way to the street. Yeah, that's no problem.
Considered anyway.
Because this has been, see, we have a 8.5-foot setback where the kitchen is, so
Yeah, you have plenty of-
more than.
North side, but could be better, probably.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Oh, you recessed the windows?
Yes, windows are recessed, especially in the front. They're 10-inch walls. All the walls on the lower floor that you see in the living room, this bedroom, and the side, these are all 10-inch walls. The rest will be 2x6s with the windows just recessed a little bit. But these are 10-inch walls, so you have a 6-inch recess on these windows.
Okay, thanks.
Gerald Abramson, is that right?
Please state your full name for the
We
record.
are opening the public.
Yeah, we would have to officially open the
Okay,
public
or
hearing
officially
again.
open the public. I thought I would put that, but okay. Sorry.
My name is Gerald Abrahamson. I live at 1357 Virginia. I was here for the last two design reviews, and the problem has always been the height of the house. This architect is particularly more skillful than the last one in attempting to do things, but as you walk down the street in our neighborhood, you'll notice that even the biggest house, the roof line is roughly in line with the one above it, and then you step down following grade, pretty much all the way down the hill. When you come to this house, you're not going to step down anymore. You're going to be stepping up from the house on the north side to the roof line of the new house, and then there will be a large drop to the house on the south. And I'm particularly concerned about the house on the south side. The peak of that roof above grade is about 15 foot. So it's going to be just dwarfed by this house, and it really will change the appearance of the neighborhood. Not that this isn't a well-designed house. I think it's just, if it were located next to another two-story house or with some in the immediate adjacent vicinity, but having them at the ends of the block doesn't alleviate the problem. You know, you've got a very large mass house next to very small mass houses, and it's just not going to fit in. You know, you can only do so much magic by design. I mean, the scale of the house is big. I do appreciate that we put some scaling information in so we can sort of work on the relative position of things. But it really is a very big house, and I think unless you take the house on the south side and make it bigger or something, it's really going to look out of place. So that's really all I have to say at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perhaps, Chairperson James, you might ask who in the audience has not seen the plans close up, and perhaps invite them up just to take a look before their comments, because,
Sure.
again, since we were given the plans at a late time, it would be beneficial for everyone to see them before making any more comments.
That's a
Is
good
there
suggestion.
anybody in the audience who hasn't seen the latest plan? Would like to see them close up? Okay, we'll take a 3-minute recess
All right.
and come up and take a look.
Rebecca.
Okay, we're back. The next speaker, Gail. Please state your full name for the record.
My name is Gail Erkey. I live at 1332 Virginia Avenue. I am the south side neighbor,
Right next door, south.
right next door south, in the little house.
Okay.
So just to clarify a few things, first of all, the hedge does not go all the way back to the garage. There's a break in it. They have lantana. To put that in perspective.
Oh, that little, yeah, I see. In this picture, there's a break.
Right. And I am the one that sent the letters with the picture.
Yeah.
I couldn't quite read on the plans how high it is, but I'm assuming it's still 28 feet. And that was my concern when I sent the letter. And now that we know that my house is actually 3 feet lower, for me, it is still the height of the house. I appreciate that there's some Spanish styling, because I like Spanish styling. When the stately two-story house was built in the 1920s, I don't think it appeared out of place because I don't believe there were other houses before to it. In the year 2008, now you're putting a two-story house between one-story houses. It's saddening to me to think that the plan has been changed and a ruling's going to be made. There are 20 neighbors. 15 of them signed a petition against the two-story project. That's an old project now. It's been revised. Those people don't have the opportunity to sign. One of the people that didn't sign it was the applicant. Makes sense to me that he wouldn't sign it, and the other 4, they have their various reasons. I think it would only be fair to allow all 20 neighbors, who aren't all here tonight, to have the chance to look at the plans. And I also would like to say that with paint shop, I think I could do the picture and account for the garage next to the hedge, because I look at it and it just does not make sense to me.
What is that?
That picture up there, it's got the driveway. The driveway goes through that gate, and if it goes through the gate, then the garage should be behind the gate, and it's not.
There's a portion of the gate missing. So this line of the existing house is at the same exact location.
Right,
The house.
right.
So the house location is correct in this drawing.
Okay, but this is what we're looking at, not this.
Right, and I
Say
believe
that
last
again. I
time...
still don't understand what you're saying. I'm sorry.
Well, I look at the picture, and I think it's a really...
Which picture?
it's
There's pictures all over this wall.
Okay. The pictures that were taken from 2
Okay.
weeks ago.
Yeah.
Because the concern of the neighbors is the mass. So now we have pictures, but the picture, that house should be right up against those hedges, and it is not.
Why would it be against the hedges?
The garage is not against the hedge.
Yeah, it is.
There's a gate in it, and that's my
I'm
perspective.
trying to understand what
Yeah.
you're saying, because the garage is...
I believe it's misleading. I look at it and think, that is a 28-foot house next to a 15-foot house, 3 feet, and my feet are too. My house is 3 feet below that property, so how can it look the way it does?
Well,
And
I'll tell you something you should know,
Okay,
is that the
please.
garage is one story,
the garage is 1 story,
similar to the height of your house,
okay,
because you have a fairly high roof line.
right?
And the second story part is, what was it, 15, 9, 12, how far is it over?
19 feet.
19 feet before the second story comes up,
Right?
right? And it has a sloped roof that slopes away from your house. So it isn't 19 feet there, it just goes up.
It's 28 feet at some point, so then I would assume that's the
Eventually it is,
peak.
but the line of sight, it's not straight up, it's like this. So, but anyway, that's that one point.
Okay.
But I think the picture's not misleading, because well, what's misleading is this, he should have, that gate isn't in the right place. That's true. Because they left the old gate picture and it doesn't get a
Right, so if
gate.
you take out the
That's what
gate
makes
and you move
good.
it over, then
Well,
what
it
does
makes
it
it
look
just
like?
be lengthened.
Yeah.
We'll just give it-
Actually, can I say something
Yeah, go
about that? We were trying to locate the picture in exact same location, and I believe we did, and I can show it to you one more time. The location, the corner of the house, the new house, closer to your house, is in the same exact location as the existing house.
The corner of the house, not the garage, the corner of the house.
Yes.
Okay.
So
It's
the-
further out, though, because we measured
The
it.
reason that you think that extra piece of gate that is a sort of remained there from the previous house
Right.
on this drawing is that that piece of gate was taken away to be able to see the new house. And if you put this drawing on top of the existing house on a light table that you can see the two together,
Okay.
you'll see that the house is not repositioned to make it look like there's more space between your house and the new house. And we can do that, but I can assure you that the location of the house, as positioned on the existing landscape of the existing houses, is in the right location. I can show that to you.
Okay, I appreciate that.
I just want to. It's very hard at this scale of a drawing to maybe quarter inch of difference makes a big difference in a perspective like this.
Right,
But
so
we-
to allow people like me to understand it, that's why
Yeah,
the
and
city
we-
council's
and-
considering storyboarding, because that would actually show the outline, as I
Yeah,
understand?
and because of that, we, both Alan and I, we took maybe at least a minute to position this to make sure that we did it right. And that much I can tell you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe I can kind of show the neighbor some information that I kind of put on the.
You want to bring her up?
Yeah, if you can. So, kind of unorthodox, but we'll go ahead and do that. So, kind of assure you that what you're looking at, it's what we're looking at, and we're both are looking at the same thing. We have a 6-foot setback, and we have a landscaping that it's going to go along here.
So this is on my side of the house?
This is
where
on
the
your
trash
side
is
of the
gonna go?
house. They're proposing
Got
a
it.
6-foot landscaping, so pretty much 6 foot of this driveway, it's going to turn into landscaping. Okay? Then, this point, which is the corner of the new house, will be the width of this driveway going back. So what you're seeing is going to be a skosh in that corner, and that's going to be this point. Okay? Further back, you're going to have the garage coming to the 6 foot. So this section that you're looking at is the 6-foot section. So what this corner that you're looking at is where this point is, where I drew the line.
Okay, and is it where you drew the line, or is it where the porch is? Because the porch comes out
No.
to the
No,
driveway.
no. The porch, I guess.
On the old house.
I guess the porch.
I'm
this-
sorry,
this-
the side porch, this is all porch right here. So now is the house
Right,
going to
okay.
come all the way
So
to the
this-
edge?
This is the edge, the way I see it, and I
Okay.
may be wrong, and that's where the edge is. So this is the porch, and that comes out to this corner, which is that corner.
Okay, so
And
the,
what he's doing is this is the new line. This is
Okay.
the old line.
okay, so right now, where the driveway is where the
Right.
driveway will be.
Right.
So then the
Except-
house,
Except it's going to move, or 6 feet of that is going to be taken out.
okay, and the driveway's been extended, so it actually is like right up against the property
Right,
line.
right.
But the edge of this porch right here, so
No,
this is,
that's going to be gone.
Okay, so
this
that's where the
little
edge of
wing
the
is
house
gonna-
will be?
No, the little wing is going to be gone. The edge of this pop-out, this house, where the house is, maybe this is where the line of that corner is, where you're looking at right there. This is where the new house is going to be, so let's
it'll
say about
extend
that,
out further.
maybe a foot or two into the driveway.
okay,
That's where you're looking.
okay.
So I just wanted to clarify that. So now, looking at this, you're right. He didn't superimpose the landscaping there, therefore this gate should be moved over, not there. So this is actually moved over, and there's a landscaping going right across. where that point is 6 feet away from your property line.
Okay. So if I'm understanding it correctly, then the driveway coming out
Remains.
here? Okay, so the driveway remains where it is?
Right.
And the house is next to the driveway? And I understand that the garage is there, but the house is going to
Well,
be...
wherever this point is, which is the back portion of the porch. This is the porch, there's
Right.
another piece in the back.
Right?
That's where the building line is going to be.
Okay, so...
Which is that.
okay.
That's
What I was
So the
talking about.
house, this is house right here? And this is driveway right here?
Right.
And we're not moving
Right.
this section right here?
No, no.
Okay, so this comes straight out here.
Right.
So if we follow it back to where
Right.
this porch is right now?
No, not
straight
there.
up.
So it's there
Right?
and there. So this is gone, this porch is gone.
Okay, so that we're widening the driveway then?
At
Does
that
the-
point, yes.
Well, I know it has to get into the garage.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
That's what they're showing.
Yeah, what I meant was
We had
that
one month.
this,
Alan, could you,
And I'll explain it to you. So I
because
just wanna
you
hurry.
had a concern about the location of the garage in reference to your...
I
Can you-
do. I would
you-
love to share that.
We
again.
can look at that. We can look at it here. Mr. Clark. I
Okay,
can explain to
but I
you.
know that was a complaint, that was a concern. I think we should address it.
And what I was trying to explain was that this kind of difference with the existing house and the house, in this kind of perspective is very slight. I mean, it's so small of a difference to detect this kind of perspective. What I was saying was that the corner, the edge of the new house is very close and aligned almost with the location of the, as far as...
This
where
is what we're
located.
seeing with the plans. I mean, this is
Yeah,
what I'm trying to explain to you what I'm seeing, so we're both in the same page, and we're looking at the same.
So this is the new house. Does this represent the old house? Is that what the hatching is?
I think the hatched is the existing, the second floor. It's the second floor. The hatching is the second.
Okay.
But as far as this drawing is concerned, when you might stay right...
Did you ever
in front
provide
of
an
it.
existing site plan?
Lift this drawing up.
Right.
You can see that this line,
Right?
and notice this part of the fence.
Right?
It falls right on top of the same
Okay.
fence.
So right now, if you lift it back up, this fence right here is a porch. It's a side porch. There's a
That's going to be gone.
That will be gone.
okay.
That
And
will
will
be gone.
house replace that? Because the house is coming up right next to the driveway. And if the house is coming up right next to the driveway, it's not further from my house, it's closer to my house, because right now it's a porch, which you're right, you can angle up and look.
Let me show you this.
Okay.
That's what it's like now. There's
Right.
that big porch.
Right.
So the
And-
driveway's actually moving over.
Oh, the driveway is moving
Yeah,
over.
the driveway,
Moving
yeah,
over.
okay.
And is it, so, okay, so they are moving,
Yeah,
where they drive in here is actually getting moved, so into the red?
It's
Is that
much
right?
wider than this driveway because we have the
Right,
landscaping
they'll make
added,
an adjustment,
and-
the city, the street trees, put
Oh,
the
good.
apron over it. The
Okay.
driveway might have a slight bend, but the driveway's coming over about to here.
But
Okay.
the driveway is
This is all
wider
going out.
to begin with, and it's moving 6 feet away from you,
Okay,
and replaced by that.
Okay.
That's where the difference.
which is about what I have in the hedge further back, so right where it is right now. On
So the
the
hedge will come all the way out, actually, continue. Then the driveway starts, then the house.
Okay.
That's the difference.
So may I say one more thing about the garage, and I'll return to the, I'll go back there?
Yes.
Okay, so the garage, the new garage, where it, and I think I mentioned this last time, it is perpendicular to the middle of my middle bedroom, which is 7 feet from the fence line. And now looking at where they intend to have their trash cans, I would say that is right at one of my windows. And I understand that there's going to be shrubbery there, but there is no shrubbery there now. There's a hedge right at the front of where the garage is going to be, but if you go back a little further, there's nothing. So something to consider. And then one more thing about the two-story house that was mentioned that I didn't know was a two-story house. Grew up in the neighborhood, played in most of the houses, and the one that is directly across, I think they built the attic out, because it didn't used to be, so just to
I know,
share
that's why
that.
I said it's in the back. You can see it in the back.
Yeah,
It's not visible from the front.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Oscar, you're next.
I'll get there.
Please state your full name for the record.
My name is Oscar Faisal. My wife and I live at 1328 Virginia Avenue. The architect has a lot to say, what he thinks should be, and whatnot. That doesn't necessarily mean it's true. If you look at the picture, it does not fit in with the neighborhood. The house up the street was built in 1928, and since then, all single-story residents have been put in until we have this situation. And if this, in addition to having a two-story house like that, it will open the whole block to two-story homes. Nobody can make an argument anymore, well, these are single-story houses in this block. It just doesn't fit in the block. In addition, I believe the lady over there said that certain things weren't done, they were still in the works. You were thinking about them, or you had plans that just were given to you today, so you haven't run them through the procedure. If there is anything, well, first of all, we should have everything, and nothing that, I'm not sure what I've received that you received today. Certainly, we haven't received it. And I think that we're entitled to receive those things and have time to look them over. And also, whatever is to go through the planning department should go through the planning department in the proper order. I have a feeling that we're being rushed through this situation to meet some kind of a timetable. And it isn't right that we're not getting, we have to come and say, well, did you get a paper last hour or whatnot? It just isn't right. A point keeps being made about the house at 1314. If you look at the roof line, it's lower than the house next door as the houses go down. This one sticks up either from the north and certainly from the south. It just doesn't fit in the neighborhood. And the architect admits that it's a big house and it doesn't fit. But he goes on and says, well, if you look at it from this standpoint and this standpoint, and I do a good job that way, yeah, but it doesn't stop the mass no matter what. It's hard to remember all the things.
Well, you're doing good.
I need I need the whole program reviewed for me so I can sit there with my pencil and paper. Oh, and the last thing is that there seems to be, well, so if there's a bigger neighborhood, why, it doesn't make any difference whether a mistake is made. The architect said that he drew the plans for the Brockbank neighborhood. He made a Mediterranean house for that neighborhood. And then he says, well, I'll move my Mediterranean house over to the Glenwood neighborhood. And he swears that this is the truth. And it's in the statement, it says if something's wrong, the matter should be continued and redone. That's a technical point, but it's there.
Thank you.
James, the neighbor sent a set of photographs. Copy of it?
Okay. Franco?
Someone else?
You're it.
Um,
State your name for the record again.
Franco Noravian, the architect for the project. I want to talk about this, the perspective. I know that if to the neighbors,
Talking about the drawing?
the picture that
Okay,
looks,
Point to it, please.
it doesn't look like it's that much higher than, as high as it should be from this one, because it's a perspective drawing. That's exactly the point. If you set the second floor back far enough, the further it is, you can see it in this section. I mean, we all know, the further it is, the smaller it becomes.
That's right.
So that's why it's, otherwise the scale is as close as I could get it. I mean, I can't guarantee 100%, but 99.9% it's accurate. This is 100%, the section, but in a picture it's hard to tell. What I can tell you, as far as you were asked about an existing site plan, I have the previous architect had provided an existing site plan. I didn't do another one.
Yeah, I have.
According to that, the existing house is 44.5 feet wide. Ours is 46.5 feet wide. So it's only 2 feet wider than the old house.
Not counting
That gives you a...
Counting the garage or not counting the garage?
No, not counting the garage, in the front.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
in the front.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's further back. If you look at that picture, you see where the purple, that old house is. I superimposed our proposed one on there. So we're further back. So I think it's accurate, but don't if you don't think it's accurate, don't go by this. Go by this, because the section is accurate. So if you think this is too close, then we can push it back more.
So you're putting 3 jacarandas out there?
Yeah, 3 jacarandas and 3 crepe myrtles. Yeah.
That'll be a jungle. So I have to tell you,
Yes.
looking at the existing site plan,
Yes.
but this, per that site plan, this driveway's about here,
Right.
and you're moving it over there.
Correct.
You have a street tree in here. You'll have to deal with the city about changing the
Oh, the curb. Yeah.
That tree's leaning over, so they might
Want us to change it anyway.
replant to new it, because it's,
Just
Before I start doing my thing, do you know what the height of the buildings are here?
I can only guess. I never measure the height of the existing buildings.
No.
Yes, you can probably do it better than I can. Can I say a couple more things? Yeah. This neighborhood, they're both in the Woodlands neighborhood. This is the book we have to go by. Yes, I
you call it Brockmont?
made a mistake and I called it Brockmont instead of Glenwood. We're only talking about a few hundred feet, I think.
It's above and below.
But they're both on this page. It's in the Woodlands neighborhood. It's on this page. In fact, I don't know why it's not on here, but Glenwood is not on here, but other places it talks about Glenwood and Brockmont are both in the Woodland neighborhood. And the architectural style is the same for both of them, according to this.
Right.
But be that as it may, that's not how I design. I don't design a house I design it for the street.
You don't follow the guidelines?
I do follow the guidelines, but I don't just blindly take what the guidelines say and design a house. I look at what's on the street, and that's why, Anyway, enough said about that. I think that's. Oh, and a couple of misquotes. I never said the house doesn't fit. I said I admit it's a big house. I never said that it doesn't fit. And there was something else they said I said that I didn't say. I don't remember right now, but. Anyways, maybe it'll come to me.
Well, you've got between here and there to remember.
Yeah. Trash cans. If I will, now that I know what's going on, I will move the trash cans, regardless of whether you make it a condition or not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, any questions?
Ariel.
No. I'm going to close the public hearing.
Just shows.
The be high school.
The aerial's up there in color as well.
Okay, somebody must start. Okay, you're starting.
One of the things that I like to, before anything else, mention is that I think this house has gone through 3 different redesigns in reality. The first one, which we all saw, I've seen the drawings. I think the new design, which we saw last time, was a great change and improvement to that. And we all agree that there's no question that the architect went through a lot of thinking in terms of trying to figure out how to reduce the mass of the house, how to make it be a better house for the neighborhood. And I think since 2 weeks ago, it went through another redesign which included that of style and also trying to make the massing even better. And I have to say, I was quite impressed with the change that I saw. And I think the change of style and the drawings that we asked to be provided, at least to me, it shows that there's a harmony here. And I'm, for the sake of being direct and for the sake of cutting through the chase, I'm just going to express my opinion because I think all of us have heard and tried to convey each other's true thinking and desires, and with the hope that we'll have a better addition to a neighborhood. And I do believe this is a good thing for the neighborhood. My colleagues here may disagree. I have no control over that, but I can only tell you what I feel as a professional in this area, and which is architecture, and I think we did some comparative studies, and some of the houses, because of the stepping quality of the street, I mean the street picks up slope pretty quickly, and some of the houses actually on the north side, the house on the north side is almost the same height as the second floor of the new house. So in terms of what could be higher or lower, or it's a 2-story versus 1-story, it all ends up to one point, and that's if the house can be in harmony with the neighborhood or not. And you can go around the city and find a lot of neighborhoods that have a mix of 2-story and 1-story, and if no one asks you to point out the 2-story houses, you may never even realize that there is a 2-story house in there, or 2 or 3 or more. So in a way, some of these mix of 1 and 2-story houses are in reality complementing each other in creating a landscape of houses that have a good kind of continuity in their scale. And I think this, from my humble opinion, is that this will be a good addition to your neighborhood, and you will see the difference when it's built. These drawings cannot show it in its total reality. I do believe that size and number of stories are only part of the equation. the style, the materials, the landscaping, there are a lot of things that play a big role in the way a scale of a building can be broken down. And I think the architect has gone through the length that has been imposed on him. And that's my sort of opinion and perspective on this particular house.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Carney, would you like to go, or?
Okay. You know, I'm always concerned on relative mass of houses. You know, and in fact, our guidelines tell them we should be very, very concerned about mass. So I look at this neighborhood, correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like the average, the square footage in this neighborhood is around 1,921 feet, is the average for the neighborhood. And we have, pardon me?
Yes.
And then we have, so we have 3 homes in this neighborhood. We have one that is 2,843 feet, which means that it's an increase of 47% larger than the average in the neighborhood. We have another one that is 2,578, and that increases, that is over the average by 34%. And then we have this structure. I don't know how concerned you are about that, but we always should be concerned about massing. This home is 3,403 square feet, which means that the mass is going to increase in this house, for this neighborhood, is going to increase 77%, larger than any other, than the average in the neighborhood. Should that be a concern of ours, would that consider that a mansion to be 77% larger than any other house in the neighborhood? I think, and I agree with Franco, that a lot to do with your design, that you can make them look smaller. Just because you look square footage, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is larger, but it doesn't look larger. I'll agree to that. I am concerned about a house that comes in the neighborhood that is 77% larger than the average in the neighborhood. There's a couple. Your style, Franco, I like what you've done here. I'm concerned about the neighbor on the south, because you're 3 feet higher than that house. And so anything you do there is going to have considerable impact on that house. And I can ask a question or just make a statement. I just wondered why you attached the garage in the location you did. Because attaching that garage there over that and being 3 feet higher than that neighbor on the right, it's a tremendous impact on that house and the person that lives there, considerable impact. I wish there was some solution that you would come up with that you could relieve that impact on that neighbor. And, of course, one solution is to continue with a detached garage, and that would totally solve that problem. And then you could do other things with your house. I notice on that south side too that there's at least the drawing I have, and I always like to see on a second story some setback, some break in that, and it appears visually, of course, it may not be that way. You know, you look at a drawing and sometimes it's an illusion. But on the right-hand side, it looks like a second story does have some straight vertical lines. There's no break in that second story next to the garage. It looks that way, but it's not. There is breaks in it. But you know, from this front elevation, it looks like there's just a vertical lines on the right-hand side. So that's my only concern. I really would like to. It's a very large house. Can we tolerate 77% increase in that neighborhood? Which is, we're approaching 3. You know, that's quite a jump in size of housing. I would like to see some design that would relieve that neighbor on your south-hand side, that impact of the garage on it, because it is right next to her window and her backyard's area. I really would like to see a design that would relieve her from that. Basically, I think you've done a good job on the second story, though, and how you've accomplished it. It doesn't, by setting it back, it really doesn't have the impact that if you had that much further forward. Maybe you could tolerate the 77% endings. But, so, to summary, I think we really should locate that garage area to relieve the neighbor of the impact of that it has on her property. I like your style. You've gone to a architectural style that's compatible with the neighborhood now. I'd like to hear some of the people comment on the massing, that 70%. It doesn't. I have to agree. It doesn't look like a 77% increase over the edge of the neighborhood. But you're not overburden. You didn't overburden the house with fenestration, because that has a tendency to make it look more massive. You didn't do that, and that's good. So. And I like what you've done with all the fenestration in the front, the square, the vertical the windows, reducing the entranceway has a tendency to reduce mass. So you've done a lot of great things with this house, and I really appreciate it. So really, the only thing I wish somehow we could relieve that impact on the south side, the impact on that neighbor on that side. I think would be, if we could do that, you could come up with a good design. That's my comment.
Thank you. When I look at this kind of projects, try to take in all the facts that I can get to make my decision. The idea that I had last time, in order for the architect to bring us this perspective to superimpose, for myself and for everyone else to be able to see and get a fact about the project and be able to see how it's going to impact the neighborhood. I agree. I think if the neighborhood is a one-story, should remain a one-story, or the design should be in a way that it would complement the existing neighborhood. The way I see this building is exactly the way I treat this, the 1364 and 1360. Pretty much has the same idea that this building is being proposed at. The adjacent, which is the northerly building or the house, is a one-story. It's on a higher platform. The house that sits on the southerly portion, it's on a lower pad, and it is a two-story. They're pretty much at the same elevation height. They raise their roof and same elevation height. And one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to see how this building, leaving it as a two-story, how does it impact the north building? I'm going to talk about the south one first, next. The northern one, I kind of measured to the highest point from the lowest point, which is here. It's about 22 feet. You have approximately, according to the architect, approximately 4.5-foot drop from this point to that. So we have about a 26.5-foot. This building is about 28 feet, or it is 28 feet. So about a 1.5-foot difference. So as you can imagine, the relationship that you're getting in a one-story versus a two-story, this is pretty much what you're going to be getting. Now the question comes, the certain part, which is, now you've got this project, which is this house is a two-story volume next to a one-story. Now how does it affect our project? This section, according to the architect, he's saying it's right on. So I'm going to take this, and he's fairly accurate with the dimensions that I put in. And what I measured is pretty accurate about the height, what I came up with. 3-foot drop, 6 foot away, a garage height. I drew in approximately a 5'10" person, and the perspective that they're going to get looking up from the corner is going to completely avoid this. And if they walk back further, they're going to get a much flatter perspective. So they're going to slowly get in, get the view of the upper second floor. As they go further back into the yard, they're going to get a lot better view or more of the view of the second floor. The thing that is missing on this drawing, and I just hate to put in information that I was hoping that the architect would take this and then start putting this in, is the actual landscaping. The photograph that the owner has provided us adjacent, and I wasn't able to go into the backyard. And from what I'm seeing, and all these photographs that we're seeing, there's actually a garage in the back right now that sits right on the property line. And I'm not sure the impact that garage has to the backyard. And I don't know if you can even see it with these photographs. I don't think you can even possibly see it because it's covered with hedges and trees. And that's pretty much the view that I'm seeing, being that these trash areas, once we remove this and plant these trees, it's pretty much covering, or hedges, pretty much covering the structure that is existing. So theoretically, this is what we're going to be getting. In a better perspective of this is that this large element there is going to be pushed back brought back equal to the house itself. So the impact as you stand next to it would be almost none because you have the trees and covering, and due to the height and the setback. The second floor is pushed back almost 20 feet, 19.2. And the person that can't actually see this, they need to be next to the house. They need to be well within the house to be able to look through the trees and be able to see that. So this facade, the way I see it is, if the planting is done according to, I haven't really got into the planting. I'm going to ask you about that. So that's the fact for me at this moment, and that's how I see it. Now, the compatibility would have been an issue for me, much bigger issue, and it would have been a deal breaker for me that if this project was completely flipped the other way around, the driveway was placed on this side, the two-story building was similar to this configuration when you have the two-story against the driveway or against the house, then the smaller proportion, so you would have had this kind of a configuration, and that would have been, I would have agreed with everyone on that. Typically, I think it takes about 3 to 4 times in the past experience that we've had with similar type projects that we've gone through in the past, projects that have come to us, that it's taken us 3 to 4 times of return for redesign, thus resulting over a 12-month or over a year of going back and forth. I'm fairly impressed with what I see within this 2 weeks of a turnaround. The quality of the design, the attention to the simplicity of the architecture, and cleaning up all the stone and all these little details, adding elements there that it actually helps accentuate the style of the architecture. So as far as the two-story, there is existing two-story within the same landscape, the same streetscape. So it's not going to be the first, or it's not going to be the unique. And similar condition has occurred, but this project is addressing a lot more other conditions and issues there that it wasn't addressed in the original two-story that was built. I think they're a lot more conscious about the neighbor. I think they're going to soften the impact to the south neighbor. So I think what I see is compatible, and then I agree with staff that it is compatible, and I support it. Thank you.
I don't know if I have much to add. You guys have been very thorough.
I think what we need is a little bit more of the landscaping information and maybe your input on against the south property line and the trash locations and all.
Well, I was looking at the neighbor's photos that she sent us, right? And I noticed, see, I'm familiar with this particular hedge because I have the exact same hedge on my driveway that I put up for the same reason, and put a little buffer between me and the house next door. And this is a wonderful hedge. You can do lots of things with it. It's easy to maintain. It doesn't have to be very thick. You can trim it any height you want, and it goes back. So my first consideration was that they ought to try to protect this hedge instead of replanting that area, because the hedge will survive if they just water once in a while. It's not in the way of construction. They can get around it. And it's right now creating a little, it's really creating this whole privacy barrier for the neighbor to the south already. I mean, I suppose you can see through it if you really try to in places, but it creates that effect. And it extends basically to the end of her house, which is about where you're going to extend to. So you're more lined up, right? And then then there's a break, as she mentioned, because there's oleander, which I would definitely get rid of. Oleander is not good around kids. It's a poisonous plant. Freeway's okay. Get out of your car, you get the oleander, you'll probably get it by the car first. But anyway, so, and then removing the garage. Obviously, I'm personally not in favor of garages in the backyard. I have one, and I'd never wish it on anybody, particularly. Particularly, with the way people are driving and speeding, and we still can't put fences up. You need a backyard. You can really stick them back there and leave them. So the more space, the better. So I have no problem with that. And I think that by moving the garage, we'll take away a mass that neighbor's had for quite a while, and it'll actually kind of open up a vista. And you're planting palm trees right there now, and it won't be solid, but it'll open it up, and all of a sudden she'll be able to see the hills from her backyard, just to have a great space out there. So as far as the landscaping, I like the bulk of the landscaping. I just thought you should try to keep that hedge along that side and add a little bit to it and kind of just say, okay, we're going to give her this, and you can figure out how high you want to trim it. You can cut it any height you want. Or you can let it grow taller. What do you want to do? It's a very flexible hedge. And as I said, you can trim it a foot wide. Some people do it 8 inches wide. It's not a problem. But the bulk of the trees, I mean, I have been criticized for my encouraging planting trees from time to time, for some reason. God knows why. But seeing as we are into this global warming thing, any tree contribution is appreciated. So I recommend lots of trees, still will. But we can't use them to screen anymore. We just use them to beautify, which I think you're doing. So I have no problem with that. I do think you have to move your driveway apron, and you'll have to work with the city on that particular street tree, because it looks like it's leaning at least 15 degrees or more, which puts it into a potential derelict tree. So give them 2 more trees, and they'll probably be happy. So I don't really see a problem with it. I think it's a very subtle design. It's very soft. It's not what they say, in your face type of thing. And I think that, referring to Mr. Carnahan, the first floor is 2,100 square feet. That's just about the average size of those houses. So the real addition is that, 17 or 16 on the second floor? Whatever, 1,300 on the second floor. That's a really small second floor, 1,300 square feet. So I don't foresee it as looking as oversized, particularly. It's a big lot. And I agree with Mr. Merlikin, because I like the way the roofs kind of match, and they step down, and they match, and then your steps down in the middle, so when it goes to her, it's back to about more or less at her height. So I think you handled that transition well. So I see nothing wrong with it. Well done.
Sir
Yeah.
James, I was hoping that you can comment on some of the planting along the garage, because I don't think there's enough planting.
Right here is where the hedge is. I'm just encouraging to keep it.
Keep that,
Yeah,
those
that's the
hedges.
only area.
I see.
And move this, they could go back in here and create space, but the kitchen's over here, so. they ought to go
Right,
over
but
here.
do you think after the construction or during the construction, they can still maintain it? Should something be written that if it gets damaged or
Well, if
destroyed,
it gets damaged, they should just replant it.
replant it?
It grows fast. It's an easy hedge, good hedge. Because the thing is, you don't want trees over the driveway, particularly, because they start getting in the way, right? But so you want something that's tight in that area, so you can use these surfaces. You know, kids play in these driveways, and if you don't have a hedge, if you have a tree that's going over, you can't even play
Outside the
basketball.
backyard, are you still going to play in the driveway?
No basketball court back there. That's a basketball court driveway.
I
So
have
put a
I have
backstop up.
one suggestion or
Go ahead.
question. I think actually the bay window would help the front elevation, when it can be changed.
Maybe a
or-
suggestion, I mean.
You can make a motion and put it in if you want. It's an option.
Sure.
So,
Because I think if you look at this, for example, this house on 1364, it has a nice bay window, which, if done in the right style, it will help to break down this elevation even more, rather
It's
than
not
a
so flat.
wall with openings. It
We
will
are,
be
we do
feature.
have a 10-inch walls, you know, so they are going to be 10-inch thick walls
in the front.
in the front.
Yeah, no,
It's an
I'm
option.
just saying that it will break down the scale of the house even more.
Okay, so,
I have two comments from the board, just to repeat quickly. One was to be to maintain the existing hedge along the driveway and replant the same type of hedge if the existing hedge is damaged during construction. And two would be to consider including the previously proposed bay window.
and three, to
That would be considered.
relocate the trash area.
Just wanted to make
And-
sure,
I'm sorry, relocate the trash area?
just want to make sure the hedges stop right by the gate. The planting should continue the way
We
they
don't want the
have.
hedge to come any further, unless they want to.
Well, no, not the hedge, but the trees and whatever else they're
Well, yeah,
planting.
what they're showing. Yeah,
What they're
this is where
showing-
the gate is, right?
Right, what they're showing in front of, it should continue
Yes.
what they're showing, but then the hedge should,
They're showing lawn and a jacaranda, and they're not showing that little low block wall.
So
You want to leave the block, what, go ahead.
you would have to make sure that
Go ahead.
we can, well, first of all, we'll have to ensure that any wall or anything above 18 inches would be modified, because essentially nothing is permitted greater than 18 inches in the front setback.
except
And-
it's a retaining wall.
Except it's a retaining wall, correct. But, and then we can make that notation that all proposed landscaping in front of the hedge, towards the front property line, be installed as proposed
In the front setback.
in the front setback.
Yes.
Not to be contrary, but just for your consideration, the board commented on how consistent the design is within its Spanish Mission Revival style, and a bay window is not very typical or common within that style. So just for your consideration prior to making a motion.
Thank you. Okay. May I have a motion?
Do you still want to?
Motion to add the bay window to the
Make
front
it
elevation as an option.
All right, so let's.
That would be a
what's the motion?
consideration then.
Yeah.
What's the motion?
What's the motion? Yeah,
So it'd be, the motion would be to approve with conditions and considerations.
Right. So who's making it?
I'm making a motion to add a bay window, or bring back the bay window to the front
You're making
of
a
the...
motion to approve it, condition, and then you can tell you.
Oh, so motion to approve with conditions
Right.
and considerations. too.
Okay? So I have a motion made by Board Member Zarifian. Do I have a second?
Second.
Board Member Malikian, in terms of a roll call. Board Member Carnahan?
I'm going to say no, for the reason that I think that that garage should be more sensitive to the neighbor by moving it back 10 feet, but I know I'm not going to get approval of that. So based on that, I don't think it's as sensitive to the neighbors, so I'm going to vote no.
Okay. Board Member Malikian?
Yes.
Board Member Zarifian?
Yes.
Chairman Pro Tem James?
Yes.
The motion passes 3-0. Or, I'm sorry,
3 to
3-1. 3-1.
Okay. So the next thing, I believe, is,
Oh, and just
an
before we
agenda.
continue, as noted on the agenda, an appeal period of 7 days begins today. So if anyone would like to appeal the case, it would have to be within the 7 days, and the appeal forms are available at the Permit Services Center. That said, Chairman Pro Tem James.
okay, so I think next is the approval of minutes, right? I don't have an agenda.
There must be an agenda in there somewhere.
Agenda.
Okay. So we, according to this, December 6th minutes?
What it says.
I'm sorry, there are 3 sets of minutes. The first set of minutes was dated December 6th. The second set was dated December 20th, and the last set dated January the 17th. So we are requesting approval of all 3 sets of minutes.
I'm going to have to review this, it's been so long.
Take your
I was
time.
fine with it, I read it.
Yeah, I was finally.
She's bringing you stuff. Okay.
All right, so again, we would need motions to approve the minutes dated December 6th, December 20th, and January the 17th.
Let's do one at a time. So,
Do I have a motion for at least December the 6th?
Ellen,
Motion to approve.
December the 6th.
Yes.
Second.
Okay, Board Member Zarifian. Actually, Board Member Zarifian was not present on December the 6th.
Well, it's a good try.
I apologize, but I don't think we should be able to.
I thought Mr. James looked at it. So I didn't-
So, but Board Member Carnahan and Board Member James were both present. So.
I'll second.
And Board Member James. Okay, so Board Member Carnahan,
Yes.
Board Member James,
Yes.
Board Member Malikian,
Yes.
and 1 abstention. The minutes of December the 20th, all 5 were present. So do I have a
Motion
motion? Sorry?
Motion.
Motion by Board Member Malikian, second by Board Member Carnahan. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Zarifian,
Yes.
Board Member Malikian,
Yes.
Board Member Carnahan.
Yes.
Chairman Pro Tem James.
Yep.
Motion passes 4-0. And last but not least, this would be for January the 17th, and Board Member James was absent in that day. So motion, Board Member Malikian? 3-0, all right. And then a second?
Who was, we all here?
Everyone except for
Second.
Board Member James.
Second.
And Board Member Zarifian. So Board Member Zarifian?
Yes.
Board Member Carnahan?
Yes.
Board Member Malikian?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
Okay. So is there any discussions we need to have?
There are no staff announcements? No.
Okay. Then we're adjourned.
Thank you.
So